Okay.
Thank you.
Recording has begun.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. And this is my first go around with using the Zoom and the slides. So any technical difficulties, please forgive me. And I would like to thank right out the gate, Judy, for all her help and expertise on doing this. And I think it's going to be a wonderful presentation. So with that being said, Judy, can you go to the next slide, please? For the agenda today, we're going to be dealing with the care and cultivation and propagation, and the differences between, we have an MOM versus an MOT. Let me describe that first. MOM will, and I will say this again at some point, MOM will refer to mother of millions, and MOT will refer to mother of thousands. They are two distinct, different Kalanchoe, and we will hopefully clarify that so that you'll be able to look at it at a glance, but there is a distinct difference. So, welcome to the wonderful world of Kalanchoe. And thank you. You'll notice the names here. Kalanchoe is the old historical name, but in the reclassifications and changing of things, we've come to the bryophyllum, which is a relatively new one. So if you're looking, wherever you will see on the slides a note of the capital K followed by the name of that particular species or cultivator, you could also put in the bryophyllum and probably get the same thing if you're going to do a search for any of these plants. The slides will be up. If you have a pen, paper, there may be a few things you want to take notes on, and also to write down any names of specific plants. We've attempted to identify most of the plants. Some of them, they won't be individually identified, but I will do it as they're just other examples of the same plant. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay. What's the difference between them? The mother of millions and the mother of thousands. As you'll see by reading this, you get a couple minutes to get your answers in. And those that get a correct answer, we will be sending you a plant. And Judy will be collecting this information, and you're going to receive a plant. So I gather, oh, there's the information.
Links in the chat.
Thank you. See, these are the things that I didn't know was available. So we're experimenting with this. Let's see if it works. Okay. Well, should we go to the next slide, which should be the kick? Oh, go on. Okay. And welcome to all the participants here. If somebody has a question at some point, let me know or let Judy know. And like I said, this is my first time on doing this with the slides and Zoom. And any of the slides in that production of it, I have to thank Judy for. Anybody that might be thinking of doing a presentation like this, I cannot recommend enough to contact Judy. She is the diva of this Zoom and setting up these slide presentations. And if she could walk me through this, then she can walk anybody through this. So, okay. Let me know when time's up. Okay. Are we ready for the next slide? There we go. Care and cultivation. So we are now officially starting the presentation. To start out with, and throughout, I will just refer to these as Kalanchoe. They will prefer a full sun, brighter the better. They will survive in partial shade. They do like a warm temperature, but not to the point of where they're up against getting burned or too much heat. Okay. They'll need a well-draining soil because you don't want to overwater them. A good method works. That's the soak and drain method, where you would soak the plant till the water's running out of it, or where they've done it in a pan or something, and then you let it drain and get fully dry. It seems to be doing better. They're generally all native pretty much of Africa and Madagascar. They tend to be hardy to 25 degrees. That is on some. Some of them are only going to be hardy to 50. So you're going to need to check on that on some of the more unusual, rare variety. It may be only hardy to 50 degrees. But quite a few of them that you're going to run into normally will be hardy up to 25. And again, where I've said, do not overwater. I can't stress that enough. They're also going to like a well-draining soil. Okay. So unless in shade in a house, they'd be perfect. If it's a bright window, you might want to avoid like a full southern exposure where they could get burned. Keep an eye on them. In a house, they're going to be perfect because they're going to like that constant warm temperature. If they don't get enough light, they'll get a little leggy and you can trim them back. Next slide, please. I put this here and these numbers because I think everybody should take the time to either save this slide or write down these numbers. We haven't ever discussed this usually in our meetings, but the top number is for the normal human poison control. And the lower number there is for the ASPCA, which is for animal poison control, because all Kalanchoes are toxic to dogs, cats, birds, and livestock, and to a degree, children. And I'm going to cover the various aspects of this toxicity right now, other than they are all toxic. So if you don't need to be afraid of them, but obviously if you're working with them, wash your hands after you're done with soap and water. You don't want where it's going to be small children chewing on a leaf, or if you have curious pets or dogs or cats, you're going to want to keep them out of their level. So for that frightening part, now let me explain what it is. The toxic effect of the Kalanchoe, in a mild case, it's going to be gastrointestinal issues, irritation, distress, that sort of thing, upset stomach, diarrhea in its mildest to moderate case. Okay. In its extreme cases, it has a cardiac toxin, which will slow down the heart rate and mess up the rhythm of the heart, actually. Although this has been found and there have been no livestock that we've seen that have ever died from it, or children that have died from it, it is a pretty safe warning. And through the countries where this does grow as a weed, it has been seen where it has a toxic effect on livestock and animals. So again, I recommend you write down these two numbers and post them on your refrigerator or keep it in your cell phone. They're just they're just really handy numbers to have around just in case. Okay. So I don't know if anybody has any questions at this point yet. So I'm seeing none. Let me just make one more statement under the general care. Most Kalanchoe can be relentlessly invasive. And this is the part where you either love them or hate them. In the sense that you've probably ended up with Kalanchoe as gift plants almost in pots of other plants, or whenever you've had it, you'll have the soil and all of a sudden this pops up. And the reason for it is they can be so invasive because they can both start via plantlets or seeds, and the seeds can survive for years being dormant before they decide it's time to grow. So that's why you could have a plant in a pot and have it in your greenhouse for several years, no problem. And all of a sudden you've got Kalanchoe in your greenhouse, and it could be just seeds have gotten active. So there you go. Next slide, please. Propagation. The wonderful thing on them is they can be all start from, these are stem cuttings, and the container that's used in this, you'll see somebody got a cactus in there, volunteered, but you know, any well-draining soil, and in the cutting phase, you want to keep them in a humid environment. Other than the plantlets, plantlets will develop roots on their own. You'll see that in a few slides coming up. If you're going to start from a leaf cutting or a stem cutting or anything like that, when you break a branch off of a Kalanchoe, it's going to form new branches and will bush out more. So if you have a leggy plant, it didn't have enough sun, you can break that off, make a start with it, and go on from there. They're also wonderful plants for reasonably aged kids if we want to introduce them to plants, because they're pretty indestructible. They're pretty easy to propagate. There's a wide variety. They are grown for colors, spectacular foliage. Pretty much every Kalanchoe can be started from a leaf cutting, because not all will form branches, but a leaf cutting is fine. Also, not all Kalanchoe produce plantlets, so we'll start from there. Once you have removed a leaf or a stem, it's generally important to let it callus up. I know that probably a lot of people there are familiar with the term, but those that are maybe newer or not, what this means is that when you take a cutting from a cactus, succulent, and it's a fresh cutting, you don't want to put that in the soil. You want to let that set and let the air dry it out for a couple days. If it's a succulent, usually a few days. If it's a cactus, it could be even longer, but we're speaking in a Kalanchoe. So you'd want it to callus up, which is going to form like a drying and almost a brown white. You'll see where it's dry. You want that because it's going to help to prevent any rot and disease. If you put it in the soil too soon and it's damp, that's a good way to get fungus and infection in there. So generally, with any time you're making a cutting of any sort in the cactus and succulent family, you'll generally want to let that callus up. And it can vary. You know, don't be worried by letting it set at least a couple days. Some plants you can let set months without repotting, and they're perfectly fine. So, and when you're starting plants, don't be afraid. If you know, it's not going to always work out, but just keep trying. It's a learning curve. The other thing you can start Kalanchoe in is it doesn't have to be a soil. You could start it in pumice, you can start it in gravel. Just you need to keep it relatively damp during its first rooting period and warm. After that, it'll harden itself up. Hardening means that you removed excess humidity and it's ready to really go on its own. Next slide, please. This is the plantlet. Now you'll notice that a plantlet, you'll see the very small roots, and this is greatly magnified. So when we're saying that on the Kalanchoe, a lot, not all, but most will form a plantlet like this. And these plantlets are totally mature plants. You could probably remove them very gently, or what a lot of people will do is, if they're trying to get it, will plant that whole leaf, or take a leaf off with them and start it. But these plantlets, this is another reason why it's called a mother's, why we have a mother of thousands and a mother of millions. Because if you bump these leaves, these plantlets will fall and they will produce other Kalanchoe. So if you have this outside in your garden growing wild and the wind comes up, these will start to grow. I have seen them growing out of the gutters on houses. In fact, they can be that invasive. But also in a greenhouse, you'll want to watch for where these leaflets might fall into other plants and establish them. If you see them falling off, pull them out with a pair of tweezers. Keep a little space around plants, especially if you don't want it to be too invasive. That's it. It's just a common sense, but that's a pretty good example of how mature the plantlet will get. Next slide, please. And this is showing where the whole leaflet or the whole leaf has been put in the soil so that the plantlets will start to develop into the soil, and as they mature will fall into the soil and then be plucked off or grown and pulled out as they're mature. But you can also just see from this and the ease of them growing that why they're perfect for kids just wanting to start out and grow something, provided the child's old enough to realize you can eat it. The other reason, if you'll notice from plantlets, is where they can be invasive. Literally, if you had one in your house and it fell off and got into the root, into the carpet, and there was just enough humidity in the house, these things will grow in your carpet. They do not require soil necessarily. I don't know if there's any questions at this point. Okay, next slide, please. Judy, have you gotten any responses for the questions? We have a winner. Nice. Monica, thank you. And I hope and I trust that was without looking it up or cheating and going online. This was with trust factor. Okay. We will start with the mother of millions. Okay. Mother of millions, pretty much mother of millions is going to fall into Kalanchoe. Actually, go to the next slide. Or yes, go to the next slide. Oh, all right, thank you. So would anybody care to guess the difference? Okay, you ready? What do we? Okay. Well, little technical difficulty here. Could you go back one slide, Judy? This is a learning curve for me, so bear with me. Mother of millions. The difference between these is a mother of millions, okay? Or the Kalanchoe delegonies. They will be a narrow leaf, oftentimes appearing tubular, and the plantlets will appear on the tips of the leaf. Mother of thousands, or MOT, their leaves will traditionally be wider leaves or broader. They will traditionally always be serrated or having a tooth-like structure almost, but not every Kalanchoe that has a serrated or tooth structure will produce plantlets. But in the mother of thousands, that's their characteristic. So when you see it, if it is a serrated, not a tubular leaf, you have a mother of thousands. If it's a tubular leaf, you're going to have what it's commonly called the mother of millions. There's a few other little things, but I don't want to wreck it as we go through because we're going to have a little fun. And we're going to look at some pictures and let people guess, and then we're going to say what they are. So the other last part for the mother of thousands to remember is, other than the broader, wider, serrated leaf, is that their leaves will often be in pairs. With that, now the slide, and we'll get back on track. So here we have Kalanchoe. Does anybody have a guess on whether this would be a mother of millions or a mother of thousands?
I'm going to guess thousands.
Okay. Any other guesses? I didn't hear that. Okay. Thousands? Any other guesses? Okay. Anybody that guessed mother of millions, they are correct. Next slide, please. Okay, again. Mother of millions or mother of thousands? Everybody got their guesses in? Okay. We got one guess. Any others before I say it? This is a mother of thousands. And it can easily be seen because you'll notice the plantlets are going all the way around the leaf. And the leaf tends to be, although this one looks a little tubular, it's actually a wider leaf. And in the background, you can see the serrations. And it's usually right around the serrations that the plantlets form. So this would be a mother of thousands. Next slide, please. Again, question. Mother of thousands, mother of millions. Any other guesses? Correct. Mother of thousands, because you can obviously see the serrations, and you'll notice that, especially in the top leaves, that they are paired across from each other, and the smaller, younger, maturing leaves that are on it are growing in pairs across from each other, which is another fairly common giveaway. Next slide, please, Judy. And what will we say on this? Does this fall into a category of a mother of millions or a mother of thousands? Any other guesses? Any guesses? Okay. No, this is a mother of thousands, because if you'll notice on the upper part, you can see the serrations. Even though these leaflet, the plantlets are at the very tip of the leaf, you can still see the serrations and that the plantlets are forming at the edges of the serrations, because you can see where that stem is joined in there on this image. Next slide, please. Again, mother of thousands, mother of millions. Yep, this would be another 1,000, because again, the serrations, and even in the maturing plantlets, you can see where the serrations are starting to form in the older, more mature leaves on this specimen. Next slide, please. Okay. Mother of millions or mother of thousands. Be careful. This is going to be a little tricky. Wow. Those that said millions, you are correct. The giveaway is that it has a narrower leaf. This is just a forced perspective because you're looking down onto the plant. So you're seeing just the tips of the leaves sticking out, and it'll become more clear in other pictures. So could you go to the next slide, Judy? This specimen, MOT or MOM? Yes, thousands. Yes, thousands. Again, it's a giveaway because the leaves, the plantlets are being formed along the entire length of the leaf, and it does have serrations. So, excellent. And next slide, here we go. Guesses? Everybody done? Tanya, you are correct, because as you can see for that other one, it was the mother of millions. When you're only seeing them on the tip, if you're looking straight down on the plant, it's kind of a forced illusion. But you can see from the background that the leaves are considerably narrower and have a distinct tubular shape to them, and that all the plantlets are right at the tip of the leaf, and that there is a smooth roundness with no serration. Next slide, please. I almost hate asking this because I think you guys have just got this so down pat, but what is it? MOM or MOT? Yes. Those that said millions, correct. Again, because it's that forced perspective, so when you look at it, you're just seeing the tip. When we get done with the slides, because I don't want to totally give away something here, there is another thing that is rather helpful, and I think it'll come up on a slide that's in there. Next slide, please. Yes. I'm going to ask, you guys have this so pat, I almost don't think I need to ask the question. MOM, MOT. I'm just going to come out and say that this is a mother of millions. You can, and this is a wonderful example because you can see where the leaves do have that tubular appearance. You'll see that there are no serrations on it, and that you'll see consistently throughout the plant that there are no plantlets forming on the leaves other than at the very tip. So that's always the giveaway. We're not quite done, but I hope so far this has helped explain to people where the differences are, because a lot of times people will be saying, oh, it's a mother of millions, it's a mother of thousands, thinking it's a common name, but there are distinctness to them. And again, I almost, you guys have this down so pat, I almost hate asking, but if anybody'd like to make a guess, please do. Mother of millions, mother of thousands. And again, it's mother of thousands because we can tell because there's a broader leaf, they're in pairs. Thank you, Judy. Yes, I think so. Now you'll also notice with these that it's at the individual leaves. You could see where if this plant did get leggy, you could pinch the top off, and if you were to pinch the top a couple inches off, pull off some leaves, let it callus up, you could start this from a stem cutting, and where you break it off, it's going to branch like most succulents. Next slide, please. Here is the little part I was saying. This here is obviously a mother of thousands, okay, because of the serrations and whatnot. But this is the part I kind of wanted to introduce, that of recent years, and this is by, I should be able to be viewed as the label. This is also known as the pink butterfly. And you'll notice that a lot of the Kalanchoe are going into quite a bunch of specific cultivation and do make a very, very striking, distinctive, beautiful plant. You have all kinds of colors available, anything from these pinks to blues to almost bordering on black. Now, as far as, obviously it's going to stay pink in this immature sense of the plantlets, And as they mature, they're going to have that pink edging along the serration as the parent plant, but not remain the entirely total pink leaf. The joy of these plants is if you're in an apartment, in a smaller home, you don't have a lot of space, these can easily be grown on a windowsill. They don't require large pots. They have they're not so much a spreading growth, but they have a lot of vertical and upright growth. There are a few, and we'll cover them hopefully later, because we should have time. A few climbers in the group, but most are going to be happy to be in a smaller pot for several years, fed seasonally during the growing period with any kind of a general all-around feeders food. So if you're using a Miracle Grow mixture, maybe a tenth of its strength every watering, or full strength every couple months, or Osmogrow pellets that are time release, they're going to be happy with either of them. The main thing to getting these kind of colors in this pot with them is getting them the adequate sunlight to where they're not getting burnt, but getting a bright enough light, because generally with all Kalanchoe, the brighter the better. And I just looked at in the future, I think you're going to see a lot more interesting cultivars in this. And I think it's a wonderful spot that people can get in to a succulent. I haven't seen many of these that are super expensive. They're easy to raise. They're commonly found. You can find them, Home Depot, Lowe's, any place. They're easily shared, easily raised. And they're starting to actually get a larger following, especially with the more colors that are becoming available, and because they don't require lots of space and are easily grown in a home or windowsill. So, next slide, please, Jim. I'm about to enter into the world of Kalanchoe, which I wish to introduce some different plants in the structure. It's by all means not every plant that's available out there, okay? But it's a fair number. Before I go into that, though, and we can still refer back to slides, did anybody have any questions? I'm new to the whole Zoom thing, so if there is, please let us know, and I'm going to check with Judy to see if there are any questions here. Okay, so no questions at this point. We can start to move a little bit into the world of it. Okay. Right here, this is the Kalanchoe Rhomophilbium. Now, this plant is a smaller, more delicate one. We're going to leave the slide up there for a while so that you can get names. Anybody that might want to have some names, by all means, you can ask at any point, Judy or myself. Let me talk a little bit on this. This is a fairly small Kalanchoe. It's a little bit more sensitive to water and to heat. It has a ruffled leaf. You'll notice that is kind of reminiscent of an Andromyscus, but it is a Kalanchoe. This does not produce plantlets, so it would be started from a leaf or stem cutting. The plant that you're looking at here, these leaves are maybe the size of your thumbnail, a little smaller, a little larger when mature. They like a lot of light. They're very touchy with water, cold. They will have a tendency to drop their leaves or possibly die with cold. They're in the realm of the Kalanchoe. This is probably up there as one of the more sensitive ones, but it's very small. You could have this in a 2 to 3 inch plot pot for a square plastic pot or something a little bit more lovely to display it, because there is a lot of with Kalanchoe, you're going to have not only the beauty of the structure and the presence of the leaf and the foliage, but on some of them you're going to even have the beauty of the flowers as well. There's a lot to love with these. They're not overly demanding plant. So you can look online and find any of these. In fact, a lot of times at our shows, you can see people that have these. They're not horribly expensive. Because a lot of people tend to view them as nuisance, but I think they're worth looking into. Thorns, they love small confined pots. So, any questions here? And the reason we put the names up, and if you need a name for a little longer, so that you can write it down and do a search on web, Etsy, eBay, wherever you would buy plants now in these new modern times. A lot of these types. Yes, Tammy, they do tend to be very sensitive towards the cold. Now, in a normal greenhouse, they should be fine. But they are one that if they're not getting enough water, they may drop leaves. If they get too much water, they may drop leaves. To tell you the truth, the best luck I've had with these is kind of ignoring them. I've thought I have lost this plant several times in my collection. And recently when we were doing this, Judy had seen this and said, when we were going through slides, and said, "Oh my God, that's lovely." And I had looked back through my plants, and lo and behold, there's one of them in a pot that I had ignored with an andromyscus in there. It's voluntarily growing up. So who knows? But they are sensitive, they are touchy. And this is one of the more touchy ones. But no matter how you say it, I just think that, gosh, that is just a lovely and a striking plant. Any other questions here? Okay, next slide. Now here we have yet another Kalanchoe. It's going to have the serrated leaves. This one will produce occasionally. It's going to throw off some plantlets on the leaves, but it is not going to be in where you're going to call it the mother of thousands group, because it's not going to produce lots of plantlets, and its leaves are going to pretty much stay in this curled sense whether you give them a lot more water or a little bit. This is not necessarily showing a sign of distress, because you'll notice that even though the leaf has tried to curl back to itself, it is still rather plump and healthy. And you notice that it's got that bush to it. So it is a healthy plant. Just because the leaves are like that, do not think that this is in distress plant. And this one here, a lot of these slides are ones that we got up. This one here appears to be more than likely wild or just a volunteer plant, because I'm seeing some other succulents below it in the background, but it's a little fuzzy and I can't totally make them out. And this one here also occasionally is called the alligator plant for obvious reasons. Next slide, please. And here we have another Kalanchoe. You'll notice the pairing of the leaves, and you'll notice that it's serrated. It will probably produce some plantlets from time to time on it, but it's not going to be an overly producing. The last two plants, actually the last three in the world of Kalanchoe, are not horribly invasive, outside of if you let them bloom and go to seed, you're going to have seeds all over the place. If you're worried about it being invasive in that sense, when they start to produce their flower stalks, just clip them off. And you know, or once the flower's gone, clip it off before the seed heads open, and you'll cut down about 90% of your invasive problem. If you're doing this in a greenhouse or as a potted or specimen plant. Obviously, if you have it out in the garden, you know. But again, this shows a nice example of just where there will be a variety of colors. There's a lovely structure to it. It's going to add a foliage design that if you have a cactus and succulent garden, they can be rather striking. They can get large. This one's obviously growing outside. You can see where some of it's gotten a little bit of burnt and a little too much sun on some of these, the brown spots on the tips. Okay, and that's pretty much from a just more than likely too much heat being out outside, because there's rarely infestation problems with this, with the Kalanchoe family. Next slide, please. Here we have one that's just going to be giving you a lovely, lovely example of the structure. This is one of the ones that you can readily find at Home Depot, Lowe's, any nursery. Look it up online. Kalanchoe, it's just such an abundant family. Unfortunately, I cannot even touch starting to put all the varieties that there are. Most of what I've stuck with here are ones that are going to be primarily for their foliage. When you get into further flowers, you can go the whole gamut of colors. They're one of the fewer succulents that are both grown in florist shops and sold as a flowering plant as well as a foliage plant. Next slide, please. And this is the, oh, sorry. Yes, Tammy. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to jump ahead on you. But we'll stick there. Sorry about that. I will ask in future. I'm not used to taking time typing, so bear with me. This is the okay. This Kalanchoe is, I'm just going to use its common name here. It's usually called the pen wiper. And it, in certain senses, it's very reminiscent of an andromiscus. And again, you'll notice that's very common in the Kalanchoe. The minute you start to have the serrated leaves, that they're going to tend to be in pairs. So the plants, Kalanchoe, especially with this segment of with the serrated leaves, or these appear more of a scallop leaf, they're going to have that structural symmetry as well to them. This one here is a classic. It's not going to really produce plantlets, but break off a leaf, break it off as it's growing taller, it'll branch out. You can use that as a cutting for another start, and it's, you know, perfectly fine. Again, it's one of those lovely things if you have kids that are of the age to start to get to be interested in plants, you know, and they realize about washing their hands or under proper supervision, that it's great, because these, you could pluck the leaf off, put it in a little small, almost saucer, plant saucer, with a little gravel there, keep it moist, and it's gonna root up. It's gonna put out a nice plantlet, and it's just one of those great things. I'm not that familiar with using the paintbrush to do any cross pollination on that. It's something that could be interesting to see and to start to develop more cultivars in these groups. This is a fairly older, popular leaf. It's great in a outside cactus or succulent setting because it has a wonderful structure to it. And it's a fairly dramatic plant. This one here probably could have used a little bit more light, because with a little bit more light, you would have gotten more change in the color. But this also seems to be a fairly young and reasonably immature plant. So it's probably not up to its full specimen realm. But they can make it very dramatic. And I think if potted in a proper pot, you know, are a relatively underrated yet attractive plants that I don't think you see enough of in the shows. So we'll leave this up in case somebody has some more questions. But just while we're on it, you know, you look at just the coloring on these plants and the modeling of the leaf in a proper pot, some top dressing. This would be a stunning plant and really put out a nice presentation. The other beauty of it is there's not lots of thorns, not lots of sapwood. So, any questions? Next slide, please. Okay. This here, even though Judy might not totally find the warmth and charm of it, this is one of the climbing Kalanchoes. And this is commonly called the Black Widow or Widow's Thrill. Okay. And give me a second because I gotta name this one here. And this is a Bruvadia. And you'll notice that it has this curling leaf. Now, this is going to be one that will fall under the mother of millions category, because it's that rounded tubular leaf. It will produce plantlets on the tips of the leaf very commonly. It's a very small, almost delicate plant. Like we're talking, you know, maybe half around is or well, let's say double the roundness of a kitchen match to about kitchen match size and roundness. But we'll just climb, and I mean, anything it can climb up, if you wrap it around a pole, it will climb up a branch. It has a pretty dramatic flower when it flowers. It's a large single one. This one here, the green would indicate that it could use a little bit more light, but it is a healthy plant. In low light, this will get leggy and stay this green. But you could, if you could trellis this around a window frame almost out of one pot, and it would be fine. In a greenhouse situation, this is one of the ones that can get very invasive very quickly. And it's one that I've seen people that love this plant and some people that absolutely hate it, because this is one that it might not be there for years, and then all of a sudden, poof, it will pop up in a greenhouse. But if you want a plant that's going to be in the house, in a corner, that can get large and bushy and just have this really unique foliage, this is going to be a good candidate. If you could literally put it in a pot and train this onto a tomato cage and pinch it back, and it would fill that to be a very bushy succulent. I don't know if there's any questions on this one. Next slide, please. And here again, it is in the pot. This one here, although it's been pinched back and doesn't have a lot of support to climb on, which is why it's kind of forming this mat here, you'll see that it will darken up. It can have a variety of shades from anywhere from that green to this kind of pinkish gray to almost an ebony black. And I've even seen them in a very shocking pink, but I think that's a cultivar that's starting to come out. You'll notice that in some of these, you can see on some of the leaves that are in this pot where the plantlets are forming on the very tip of the leaf, which falling into that mother of millions category, you can see it. But you can also just see from this pot that if not controlled or if in an outside setting, this could be invasive quite quickly. If you wanted something that was going to be a succulent and it's going to mat and whatnot like that, here's a candidate. If it's planted next to other trees or shrubs, this is one that's going to climb. Okay? Any questions? Next slide, please. Just another of your Kalanchoes. This one here is another one that is commonly available at your local Home Depot. You can see where it does have its flowering stalks out there. You can see that obviously this one's been growing outside, and that the structure of the leaves. You can see where as it gets more sun, they will tend to redden up. They will tend to get that more mottled appearance to them. This is a Kalanchoe that's strictly grown, or by and large grown for its foliage. You'll notice that it does have the scalloping leaves. Therefore, it will occasionally produce a plantlet, but most of your propagation for this one would be from a single leaf removal or a stem cutting. And every time you'll break off a stem, it's going to branch because they are connected in the Crashula family. So they will have a lot of those characteristics. They're starting from the leaves and breaking off a branch or something like that. Okay. We're going to have several slides on this. And the reason for that is because this plant, oh my gosh, it goes under so many names. It's unreal. But everybody has probably seen this at some point or another, and every Lowe's, every Home Depot, this is a fairly popular one to also have in landscapes. In, my gosh, I've heard every name in the book for it, called the flapjack plant, paddle plant. This is Lucia, and it has the larger leaves. It's going to look a lot. In fact, a lot of times people think it is a Crashula or in the jade group, but it's not. This is actually a Kalanchoe, and you'll notice that generally we'll see it growing like this, where it's going to have this nice green to yellow to reddish tint, almost like a sunrise or sunset if you look at it from the side. And if you could go to the next slide, Judy. Here it is again. This is where it shows that there is a little variety. There are some cultivars that will have more of this wavy wave to the leaf. Okay, it's a non-serrated one, but again, you'll see where it does try to fall. It's just a lovely plant. It's a structurally good plant. It's not a highly invasive Kalanchoe. This here, obviously it's in an earlier part of the year before a lot of sun's been beating down on it, because you'll notice where it's having that greenish to it. Some varieties of this will stay more of that solid green. Others will develop more color to them. But you can see just from the hand in this, that this can form some rather larger leaves, so you'll understand where the common name for it called flapjack or paddle plant is. Again, we don't generally see these at shows and sales because they're one of the Kalanchoes that's largely ignored. but it is a one that's regularly seen at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's very popular in using for foliage for landscaping, and it has a flowering ability. And the wonderful thing on a lot of succulent flowers and blooms is they are wonderful butterfly and hummingbird attractors because of their brighter colors, as well as bees, and they're a wonderful pollinator outside. So, you know, again, another advantage. Have these and you're going to have butterflies and hummingbirds all over the place. Judy, next slide, please. Again, another one of these, you'll notice that in this form here, it has its flowering stalk. And even along the flowering stalk, you'll notice that there are leaves that are forming along it. And it's just another spectacular plant. And this is where you can see that really with the size of those leaves, that it does show a dramatic aspect for a statement in foliage in an outside drought tolerant, low water, succulent cactus garden where you might want a little different pop for just structure in there. Next slide. And again here, one of the varieties that shows where you can really get that deep red. And this is in an outside setting, you'll notice, with what appears to be almost a dark, it actually appears to be a dark pumice, or it looks almost like a ground up granite. But you can see that just with the top dressing, that it's a very spectacular plant. Now, if you were to have this in a nice pot in a show, I could see this being a very, very dramatic plant making a statement. Even if you have a small, you don't have lots of room at your house, but maybe for just a few small pots that are outside the door where you're getting a lot of sun, here you go. That coloring, I'm a little I prefer that more dramatic. So with a darker top dress and that color, I think that's a very lovely plant. And you know, it makes a really nice statement. It's not a horribly expensive plant, easy to grow, easy to plant. Next slide. Okay, and of course, this guy, which a lot of people call the teddy bear plant and everything else, and a lot of people think it's in the crash. Again, no, it's a Kalanchoe. But this is a fine example of no serrations. It's not in the mother of millions. It's not in the mother of thousands. It's in the Kalanchoe group. But it's a great plant. It's very popular with the kids. You can touch the fuzz on the leaves and it doesn't hurt it. When it's getting a proper amount of sun, it will develop more of that distinguished white and that darker brown. So again, it's a dramatic looking plant, not a large plant, not a highly invasive plant, easily growing inside, easily growing outside. In a proper pot with some proper top dressing, I think it's going to make a dramatic statement. And, you know, it's again like in the Kalanchoe, there's so much variety in just the structure and the presence of the foliage, and even to a certain degree on some of the other types in the flowers, that for some reason I just view that it's really an underused, under-recommended, under-used plant. And they're not all invasive. You know, it's gotten a bad reputation because of the mother of millions, mother of thousands as an invasive, but they're not. They're out there, they're common, we see them a lot, but for some reason they just largely get ignored. Next slide. This one here is one that Judy found and put in there. This one here has the common name of tarantula. And even though it has this wider and serrated leaf, I am not viewing that this one would be in the mother of millions, mother of thousands category. because the serrations are rather unsymmetrical to certain degrees, and I'm not that familiar with it, and it does not appear that this would produce a lot of plantlets. It may produce some. This would probably be more of a cutting from a leaf or stem. And this is one of the ones that obviously if you took a stem, I could see this branching because it's almost falling into even that tubular leaf variety. I wish I was more familiar with this. Judy actually found this image and we just wanted to put it there in here for the just the sheer variety that there is in foliage in this plant family. Okay, here we come to one that if you're in the South, this one here is a scourge and hated, but I kind of like it. This is the Kalanchoe beharanius. I butchered the name, I'm sorry. And it's also called the felt bush, the elephant ear, okay, or the velvet leaf. There are different types. Some of them will have these bumps and nodules on them. There are several varieties, but this is one, and it's a Kalanchoe that even in your succulent bed here, especially, it will lose leaves in the winter because of frost, and can get to some severe low temperatures, but survive, and the leaves will form. But this, and you'll see in slides that will be coming up, can actually form a tree, and is it going to be a very large plant. And in the wild in the South, this is an invasive, can be an invasive weed. But in a properly maintained succulent or cactus garden, outside landscape, even in a pot, it's lovely. And it will get large enough that, and the leaves are literally a large leaf, that when used properly, if you have succulents or certain cactus, especially in the gymno groups that are going to require a little bit more shade, this is a great plant to have them under because it will branch out, it will form large leaves, it will provide shade, and literally the trunks on this can get 2, 3, 4 inches wide and be maintained in a pot. And it will branch out and form like a tree structure. You'll see in some other slides coming up. It in a more sense like that. But usually at Home Depot, Lowe's, those situations, you're not going to see them as so much a mature, fully grown species. They're going to be in your typical gallon, 5-gallon nursery bucket planters. But and you'll notice from this picture that it's going to pretty much have that softer gray color. It does have a felt on it. And then the leaves will go to that brown. Even though these leaves are monstrous, they can easily be a foot long and 6 to 8 inches in diameter. To take a leaf off of this, you can start it just from a leaf. But for succulents, this is one of the succulents that has probably one of the largest leaves, I think, in the field. I can't be quoted on that, but I haven't seen too many that have a larger leaf that are commonly grown. And I think the next slides will even show just how dramatic it can be in a structure. You'll notice this here, and you'll notice that it's, you'll actually notice 2 of them. You notice one to the right and one to the left. You'll notice that the one on the right, it's getting more sun. So it has more of the brown to it. And thank you for doing the highlighter there, Judy. And you'll notice that it is providing shade down below. And it is a nice structural difference. And if you see in that shade below, your more sensitive plants to sun, and some of your smaller like chin, cactus, the gymnos would be perfectly happy in that smaller shaded area down there. They in that shaded area have what appears to be euphorbia growing there. But as you can notice, it's just a difference. Now, if you'll go to the other one on the left in this slide, Judy, thank you. You'll notice again the branching that you can see on both of these, the sheer size that there is in the yard, the dramaticness that they bring, and almost they can bring that tropical feel more towards a cactus and succulent garden that we don't often have with the larger foliage leaves and whatnot. But you'll notice that this one here is doing quite well in what's obviously a more shady area, probably because of a tree. And you'll notice that in the shade, it's getting this deeper green and less of the brown to it. But you'll notice the branching structure, and it's a structurally lovely plant that even in a potted patio garden in a large pot, it could be grown there as well. I don't know if anybody has any questions on this. I wanted to put in a few shots with it, showing it in a landscape environment. Because so often we deal with plants not in their other uses, but those that want to use it for landscaping there. Thank you. Thank you. It's one of the photos that Judy helped with. And in fact, Judy, in this picture, if you can go to the very far left with your cursor, where what appears to be aloes are all blooming in the background. Yeah, no, other side to the right. Sorry, to the right, you'll see the golden barrel cactus. Yeah, and you can see the other felt plant there in full sun with the aloes. And you can see that, yes, even in the full sun, it's going to keep those large leaves. And I really think it brings, like I said, that tropical feel that a lot of times I think is almost missing in cactus and succulent landscaping, because we're so used to cactus and succulents staying so low to the ground unless they're a column cactus, that I really, really like seeing this. And again, the leaves are so large on this that if it drops it, you can easily pick it up. It's not going to be a hugely invasive plant. And as it matures and the leaves do fall, it's going to get that stalk and branching effect that, you know, I would even see that in the branches. You know, it's going to give more of a shading, which opens up the environment, I said. Again, for some of our gymno type cactus and some of the little mounding cactus that are going to prefer a little bit more shade and not always so much direct sun. Next slide, please. And again, another shot, and this is out of the same garden from there, that you can see it in regards for the house and get a general feel when I say it will add a certain pop and it adds a certain tropical feel that you don't often get with a lot of our succulents and cactus. And again, you'll notice that the higher up leaves, as we have some, if you can use the highlighter around the very top of that plant. Boy, I don't know where that place is. We found it as we were searching for photos, but I have seen them used in landscaping, Tanya. And next time I do see one, I will make a note of the address to get it to you. You're going to have to excuse me as I tip up my bottle of water and have something to drink. But Judy and I think, can research maybe a little bit more on that photo for you. And Judy, could you tighten up on the very top of this felt plant to where it's more showing the brown there, and even more towards what would be the right where you can see it? There we go. And you see, this is what you're going to get when it's getting a lot. This isn't a full sun situation. You'll notice that, yes, you're getting the brown on the top, but you're still keeping that luscious green or that gray green to it. And it's a very hardy plant. And obviously it does well outside. Again, it's one of those succulents that, okay, at the show, you're usually not going to see these mature plants, because who's going to bring in a pot with a, 5-6 foot tall plant growing in it? It's that, but it's one of those underrated plants that really, if you're landscaping, it's worth looking into. So, and I could even see this plant, if you're going to have some outdoor lighting, this would be another wonderful plant to put a highlight on too as well. Next slide, please, Judy. That's it. Oh, no, it's not. This is the added bonus attraction, because I'm going to say this. I have often been said that we've wondered about supporting the allied arts in cactus and succulent. And so Judy and I actually found this, and we're going to play this video because this is for those that like to crochet and are part of an allied art, and this is a Kalanchoe crochet. Judy, please. Yeah, if anybody is interested, or others. It's a short video. And we put this up there just to give a little something different that we don't always cover in the Zoom, but it's one of those things that we saw an advantage to Zoom and really wanted to try it. And as this is playing, we can start to wrap this up in saying any images we used, if you email myself or Judy, we can easily try to hunt those down, or at least source them for you to some degree, because we got all these off of the web pretty much. And the main thing I would like to say is I hope everybody enjoyed it. It's my first time really doing a Zoom one, so I thank you all for bearing with me on it. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I really want to thank the main person that made this possible, and that would be the Judy Ganshaw. She was the one that really introduced me towards getting slides and presentations and videos and putting them into the system. So the successes on this and just the sheer beauty and whatnot really goes to her on the presentation. I just looked at words and spoke. She was the one that took care of the technical stuff. And the part that I absolutely loved was she so opened my eyes to the sheer immenseness that we have now with Zoom presentation, and this that I want to thank everybody for bearing with me on this first one. I hope I didn't drive too many people up, but we wanted to just share the possibilities now that's with this, and also to say, the allied arts, whether it's crocheting, textiles, fabric, felting, painting, photography. That's all part of cactus and succulent. It all can fall under that. And I really want to encourage that even for people possibly that want to do speaking. If there's something that even falls into that allied art, it's there. You know, the beauty is in many levels: pictures, paintings, crochet, the plants themselves. Explore. Thank you. I don't know if anybody has any questions. If they're technical ones, it's got to go to Judy.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Judy, for the technical support and everything you do, both of you.
There's a link to the Vimeo if anybody wants to crochet their Kalanchoe instead of grow it.
And I will make this statement. Anybody that crochets a Kalanchoe and they enter it into the show because we've been past stuff, if especially if it's under People's Choice and it gets enough votes, I will say to put that on stage because I view that as a legit entry. I will just say right here and right now that even though I don't have a lot of artistic talent, I certainly admire and support anybody that does. So those of you that want to enter other stuff like that, please do. Enjoy yourselves. It's our club. It's supposed to be fun.
Thank you. And just a reminder that since we do not have a physical mini show, that this may be the last month to do entries for the virtual show and tell. So far, I only have one entry. So
Kathy?
yeah.
Oh, when you're done.
Spoke.
Kathy,
Yes.
Judy, and this is not really the place to discuss it. So this could be maybe a voice chat or something with all of us. But Judy had an interesting idea on how to possibly do some kind of like mini show aspect or a show using Zoom and via breakout rooms. So
I'm open to it because right now the lack of participation is really depressing.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And I'm just, it's not working. So I'm ready to abandon it as it is. So something new is certainly open to me.
I can't say this enough that I was one that was struggling with Zoom. And to everybody out there, I'm sorry if I'm wasting the other people that are in there, but thank you for being patient. Judy, just because of her job, I'm going to say this. I hope it's okay with you, but she is a science teacher, and so she uses Zoom every day and instructs students and parents on how to use it and does science fairs and everything. And when I had the idea and it was just kind of floating out there, wouldn't it be great? She showed me how to do these things. She is a diva on these things. There was not a question I didn't have. She walked me through it. Gosh, I'll be the first one to say it. If she could teach me, she could teach anybody on this. Okay. And
I'd like to second that. She's given me valuable advice on multiple occasions regarding the management.
I would almost love to just have her do a presentation on doing Zoom presentations, if that would be possible, because oh my God, I was like overwhelmed, and I guess it's probably because of her training or that she does so much of it. Everybody uses it, but she does it where she uses it to instruct people. So she has that natural talent to help. And I know that she's busy, but and I can't speak for her, but I'm sure if you reached out to her or something like that, it would be worthwhile. Or if you had an idea, she would be one that might be able to say, you might want to look at it this way, because, oh my God.
Well, we just need to get participation. I mean, all the technical help is great, but if we don't have participation, it's going to fall flat.
Yeah, I know that, but I just think in trying to get more participation, I just think when they're slicker and more visible, and just when she started to explain aspects of discussions and breakout rooms and those possibilities, I was just going, this is wonderful. Anyway, I'm going to be quiet now. I hope that there's, anybody has questions, fine. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun doing it. And thank you for being patient on my first Zoom presentation like this.
Thank you so much. It was great.
It was great. Thank you both.
So yeah, Monica commented she needs help with photographing her plants, and certainly I'd be happy to help with any guidance on that. I do that all the time for social media and my own stuff. So I'm always available for that. Okay, so any other comments, questions before we call it a day?
Last one, Judy. So how many winners did we have? And you please mute me, or otherwise the Dago will talk forever.
What do you, we had 2 people, but I thought we wanted the first one, or you want to give everybody who responded?
What the heck? Let's
With the correct answer is what I meant to say. Everybody.
Let's go with that.
Okay. All right. We'll arrange for that then.
Okay.
All right. And Tanya, same here. Love to see you, even though it's a static image. Okay, so I guess we will call it a day, and keep your eyes peeled for info on the next meeting. We don't have a, oh, there's Tanya. Wonderful. We don't have a subject yet determined for June, but it'll be the first Sunday in June, and we'll keep you posted on the subject as we determine it. All right, so I guess we are at an end. Good to see everybody, and we'll
hope everybody enjoyed it.
Indeed. All right, thank you all.
Thank you all.
Good to see you, and have a nice Mother's Day next weekend. That was the inspiration for today's subject.
Right, exactly.
And at the end, I almost forgot to say, I hope everybody now knows the difference between mothers of millions and mothers of thousands.
Yes, yes. You didn't.
We got it.
Very good. Thank you both so much. All right.
All right.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.